So while everyone else is talking about Xbox One and government surveillance, Jim Profit is the only one giving you the real happening. And that's probably why Jim Profit always gets banned. I'm gonna link you to something below where Sony is patenting these certain methods of advertisement. Obviously, they will have to share it with Pizza Hut and Burger King and others who are getting in on it. But basically, corporations are conspiring to copyright over certain types of commercialization. That's nothing new. That's to be expected. But where the severity and the sinisterness of it all comes in onto what commercials may look like in the future. Obviously, with the advancement of touchscreen and interactive motions, they want to basically patent before it becomes technologically feasible to where when you see a commercial, you have to interact with it to make it go away faster. In other words, if you look at the pictures below, basically they have you in a Burger King commercial where you throw a pickle at the burger and say, make it your way. Or they have a McDonald's commercial and the person rises up and says McDonald's to make the commercial go on faster. This is social conditioning in its finest. There's no other word I can think of to better describe it than a social conditioning, both to socially condition you to accept corporations as your masters, and the more subtle social conditioning of this is the way people are to be expected to act, how to be treated, etc. I'm not surprised that people tolerate the abuse of moderators, but I'm just disgusted and shocked to the degree that they put up with it. I mean, I know they've been conditioned to deal with this from a young age. It wasn't just for moderators. They have learned growing up to abide by every little bit of illegitimate authority imaginable, whether it be parents or teachers or preachers or anything else. The thing about it is, capitalism is not just a thing in and of itself. That's why I prefer words like imperialism or feudalism, because it's changing. It's always been changing. We don't have kings and popes and czars like we did a few hundred years ago. We have executives. We have, presidents of corporate bodies and things like that. And these masters in and of themselves we never actually see, but we know them to be there. Most likely we in our daily life are going to have to deal with the mid-management asshole who is bitter that he's not making as much money as he thought he would, so he gets his gratification abusing you. That is the typical feudal overlord you will have to endure. And this is just that on a different scale. This is that on a different technological level, updating with society. So rather than have the master in your job, you will have the master in your home. You will have the master even in your own psyche. The master will be a reflective, almost virtual copy of themselves. It will be an avatar. And this avatar commands you, and you take those commands to heart. You listen to every little word he says, and you abide by it. If you don't believe me, ask yourself, why do you listen to moderators? Why do you take what they say seriously when they tell you to abide by terms of service, even though said terms of service are both contradictory and illegal? There is no reason to do it. There is no moral reason to do it. There is no legal reason to do it. And the only real reason you're doing it is because they're threatening to take something away from you if you don't. In any other point in human civilization, we would have shot that motherfucker dead, and for good reason. But in today's society, that doesn't happen. Now, this doesn't mean that things were better in the old days. They were different. Maybe they were a more tolerable different. But they had their own masters. They had their own obligations that made no sense morally or legally, and they fought to have their freedom. But nowadays, people don't fight for their freedom, either domestically, civilly, nor revolutionarily. They don't pick up arms and take to the streets. But what I'm trying to argue here isn't the fact that we live in an apathetic society. I don't want to sound like some grouchy old man. But what I'm telling you is, as technology advances, so too will the way the masters have control over you. It will be different. You are not prepared for that difference. In your mind, it is going to become integrated into your daily life where you think that is normal. And I guess it is normalcy because it's everywhere. But it's normal in the sense of it's everywhere. It's not normal in the sense of that's the way things should be. Things should never be that way. You shouldn't have masters. And you certainly should not have masters that have no obligation and no legal consequences themselves. But as time goes on, we're moving more and more toward that, where we have the bullies and the thugs control everything, and they have no responsibility on their part, and half of the time we don't even know what they look like or what their names are. They're just faceless avatars in the spectrum of infinite internet. Because besides Mark Zuckerberg, who owns Facebook but obviously can't dictate Facebook all by himself, who are the moderators behind Facebook? Do you know? Why are you expected to listen to the whims of people who won't even give themselves an identity? And if they don't have an identity, then they're not a person. And if they're not a person, then why the fuck do you care if I say we should shoot them? You're basically mad at me for saying we should shoot invisible people that aren't people. That's why I say moderators, because moderators are not people. They're not flesh and blood human beings like you and I, have feelings and ambitions and limitations and obligations and have legal consequences for our actions. They are just an entity. And as an entity, they do influence us, but they are not bound to the same physics, the same rules that apply to human beings. So, if they are entities, laws do not apply to entities. So strike back against entities. Strike back against principalities. I'm not the first person to say this. Marx said it in Dialectics. The Bible says it. Everybody has been saying it for thousands of years. But nobody's been listening. And as technology improves, these entities, these principalities, gain more control over your life. And they are demonic in nature. Maybe not literal devil horns demonic, but they are demonic in the sense that they don't care about you. And they do enjoy abusing you. And they enjoy their privilege to abuse you because you're not going to do anything about it. So don't fucking tell me like you know what you're talking about. Because you don't. You obviously have masters. You're not the one in control. So don't argue with me. Not to say that my life is peachy keen, obviously. I get raped every moment I turn around. But I know who's my master. And it certainly isn't moderators. And it certainly isn't any of these fucking corporate bodies that think they can condition me to say McDonald's when they tell me to. Just because they say get up and bark doesn't mean I'm going to. My master is Yahweh. My master is the King of Kings. And there's a reason for that. Though it may be reactionary, but the Bible, I do think, played a vital role in distinguishing people between what they worship then or now and what they worship in their minds. It's almost like an existentialist worship. It is the worship of what could be. It is the worship of, something that transcends these human boundaries and transcends what we call masters and what we call life as we know it today. We worship something that is incomprehensible almost. It is untouchable. It is this metaphysical thing that because we're worshiping that, we're not worshiping this bullshit. And, that's the next best thing to real freedom. And until we're at that mental point where we can be absolutely free, where we can be the Ubermensch, the will to power, do as thou wilt be the whole of the law, we have to worship this metaphysical idea that there is only one master, and all these other fake gods are just taking us for granted, and they're going to rape and kill us. I guess that's it.